Um, what about your belief that the market is always right? And obviously, today the concept is that I don't know. Obviously, Bitcoin has a way larger exposure. I don't know the exact holder numbers, but I would assume more people hold BTC than BCH at the moment. Um,
Clearly.
yeah, how do you see that? Do you believe the market is wrong in that case? Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever said that the market is always right. The market sometimes is wrong as a whole compared to individual people's preferences.
Mhm.
Um, and so the market isn't one single thing, right? It's billions of people all interacting together and the end result is the market and the prices and the goods that are out there. And so at the moment, more people prefer to hold their money in BTC, Bitcoin, than Bitcoin Cash out there. But it's certainly not because of its usability as money. I think most people, they just see the Bitcoin name and they see the $50,000 price point and they think, oh, this must be fantastic. And there's really interesting human experiments. You can go and see these videos on YouTube. Where one example of it is they're on the street and they ask people, hey, are you willing to do a taste test for chocolate cake? And of course, people like chocolate cake. So they say, yeah, I'll do a taste test for chocolate cake. And they say, okay, we're going to give you two pieces of chocolate cake. The first piece is from a $15 cake. The second piece is from a $100 cake. And we want you to tell us the difference between the $15 piece of cake and the $100 piece of cake there. And the people eat the $15 piece of cake and they say, oh, it's not bad. It tastes pretty good. And then they eat the $100 piece of cake and say, oh, it was so moist and delicious. And this was absolutely wonderful, piece of cake. I can see why it's so expensive. And the reality is that they were two pieces from the exact same cake baked in the same oven and part of the exact same cake. And so psychologically, people are just oh, it's expensive, it must be better. And so they see that. And then the peer pressure is incredibly strong too. There's another example. There's I don't know, six people or something in an elevator. They're all actors. And then one guy who's not an actor gets in. He doesn't know it's part of an experiment. And everybody in the elevator turns around and they face backwards in the elevator. And everybody all the time in the elevator, you face forward towards the door, of course. But he sees all the other people in the elevator face backwards. So what does this guy do? He faces backwards too. And then the elevator stops at the next door. And then everybody in the elevator, they rotate to the right and they're just pointing towards the side of the elevator. And this guy does it too. And it's just the peer pressure is so incredibly strong. Uh, and I think that and I guess that kind of ties us into when the censorship started within Bitcoin that had a huge effect. So the civil war and the argument over the block size of Bitcoin was brewing. And the big block side, the side that eventually became Bitcoin Cash, had the upper hand in terms of hash power on the network. It had more than 51% of the hash power, and it had the majority of the people that were discussing on the message boards and advocating for that sort of thing. And when that happened, the guy that controlled the main discussion platform, which was our Bitcoin and BitcoinTalk.org, and people, they like to say, oh, it's not that big a deal. At that time, especially, our Bitcoin on Reddit had more people were getting their Bitcoin news from there than every single other Bitcoin website combined. So it was a really big deal. And then all of a sudden, overnight, that guy engaged in this massive censorship campaign where anybody that was advocating for Bitcoin to be able to scale on chain would have their post deleted and their account banned from being able to post. And it was the biggest revolt ever in the history of Bitcoin there. The highest thread ever upvoted on our Bitcoin was a thread calling for an end to the censorship and a call for that moderator named Thamos to step down and remove himself as a moderator. And it had thousands of upvotes and thousands of comments, and everybody was really piling on saying, hey, we support censorship resistant money and we support free speech. And what happened to that thread on our Bitcoin? He deleted that thread as well and banned a bunch of the people that were participating in it. And to this very day, our Bitcoin is still completely censored. A lot of people don't realize that because you're not allowed to even mention the censorship there. But then what happened is all the people that came to Bitcoin after the censorship started and they only saw one side of the story there, and everybody around them is saying, oh, Bitcoin Cash is a scam, Roger's a scammer, Blockstream is great, Lightning will solve all these problems. If you hear everybody around you saying something and you're not allowed to hear the other arguments, so you only hear it from one or two people, you believe it, right? Just like every little kid in the world believes in Santa Claus because every single person around them tells them that it's wonderful. Well, so many people in cryptocurrency, they think Lightning Network is going to solve all our problems or SegWit's going to solve all our problems because everybody around them says it. but it's just plain not true, right? You can look at it. SegWit's been activated for years now. It didn't solve all the scaling problems. Almost everybody that's using Lightning Network, they're just using a custodial platform to do it. But everybody around them is busy saying, oh, Lightning Network's amazing. This is amazing. That's amazing. Stop and think for yourself, right? If everybody, and we see it, it is human nature, but if everybody in the elevator is facing the back, don't face the back too. Just do your own thing, face forward. And it happens time and time again. And it's really frustrating to see just how compliant people are and how strong that peer pressure is, where people go along with the crowd. And I think that's a big part of what we're seeing with Bitcoin right now, is they just see it. It's where all the cool kids are. It's the $50,000 price tag. It has the cool Bitcoin name. How could it be wrong? But I think if you stop and think for a moment, even if everybody else is facing the back of the elevator, there's no reason you need to face the back of the elevator too. And even if everybody else thinks or says that on social media, Bitcoin is amazing and this and that, think for yourself. There's a lot of amazing coins out there. Bitcoin's not the only one. And I think the two coins that are the front runner for becoming peer-to-peer cash for the world are all the Ethereum-based coins. Now there's a bunch of clones out there as well, and then Bitcoin Cash. Something that costs $15 per transaction, and everybody has to use a custodial account to use it. That's not going to become the money for the world, even though it has such a cool brand name and brand recognition like Bitcoin does. But the user experience will not overcome that indefinitely. And the other thing, though, maybe that will happen, maybe they'll solve those user experience issues with Bitcoin. Maybe they'll get Lightning Network to work in a non-custodial way where your transactions can't be censored and everything works. And we all sing Kumbaya ever after because we have peer-to-peer, uncensorable, anonymous cash for the world. If that happens, great. I'll start promoting that. But it's nowhere even near close to being ready for that today. In fact, I spent a good chunk of my afternoon testing different Lightning wallets, and just about all of them were basically unusable, or the ones that would kind of were usable, I was just using an account, and like somebody else had the money, and I wasn't actually doing anything myself. And I think that's what most of these Lightning Network users are. They don't realize that they're just using a custodian account, not any different than PayPal.
What was that moderator's incentive to pick sides?
So I guess it could be two things. It could be that he genuinely believed he was doing the right thing, and that he thought that using immoral things maybe he thought that the ends justify the means, and he was willing to do all sorts of immoral means to achieve his ends. But another philosopher or thinker I'm a fan of, Karl Wattner, pointed out to me as a young man that there's no such thing as the ends justify the means. I'm sorry, that the means justify the ends, or I'm sorry, the ends justify the means, but the means are the ends, right? So if you use a bunch of coercion to try and achieve a noble goal, all you wind up with is a whole bunch of coercion. And so if you use a whole bunch of censorship to try and maintain Bitcoin's censorship resistance, well, using a bunch of censorship to maintain censorship resistance is you get the exact opposite. All you wind up with implementing a bunch of censorship is a bunch of censorship. So maybe he was just mistaken. The other interesting theory here is that we know that the US government and the CIA was interested in Bitcoin from at least 2010, right? So a long time ago. And even I remember very clearly there was social media manipulation going on in June of 2013 when Bitcoin hit $30 for the first time. The Bitcoin Talk forum became unusable. All of these brand new accounts that nobody recognized and nobody knew were busy just posting all this fluff comments on the forum saying, buy, sell, oh no, it's going up, oh, it's going down. And they weren't doing it to be funny, though. They did it to make the forum unusable because it was a small community back then. Everybody knew everybody else and recognized the screen names. At the time when Bitcoin was getting its first taste of worldwide media attention, the main platform where people were able to discuss Bitcoin became unusable by all these bot accounts. And so basically they shut down the ability of people to be able to discuss Bitcoin as early as June of 2011. And so I don't have any evidence of the next step here, but maybe if someone was a government and you have a central bank where you can print as many dollars or euros or whatever at any time for any reason to spend and give to all your friends and bribe your constituents to vote for you in the next election, you wouldn't want something like Bitcoin to become money for the entire world. And if you read the CIA's own handbook, the way they try to disrupt social movements or any sort of movement is they try to get leadership positions, and they try to get moderator positions on the main discussion platforms, and then they try to cause fighting there, and then they also engage in censorship there. So it's straight out of the CIA's handbook, how to disrupt movements. That's exactly what happened to Bitcoin. And so maybe Thamos, we don't know his real name, maybe he's a CIA guy whose job it was to delay the adoption of cryptocurrencies around the world, because it's hard to think of a more effective strategy, because you can't shut down the internet all over the world. You can't arrest all the miners. You can't arrest every single person that's trying to use it around the world. But you can disrupt the community, and you can splinter what used to be this one unified Bitcoin that had a mission to become money for the entire world. You can share that into, there's more than 3,000 different cryptocurrencies now, and even more if you count all the tokens on top of those cryptocurrencies. What an incredibly effective way to delay the adoption of peer-to-peer electronic cash for the world, and then to change the narrative. Instead of Bitcoin being a peer-to-peer electronic cash system, the narrative is now completely changed to, Bitcoin is just digital gold. Digital gold is much less threatening to central banks and government control of the money around the world and the flow of money and taxes. It's much less threatening than a peer-to-peer electronic cash system would be. So if my conspiracy theory hat on, wow, what an effective way to delay and disrupt and hinder the adoption of Bitcoin for the world. I couldn't think of a more effective way to have achieved that than what actually wound up taking place. And then to start demonizing the people that were actually trying to spread it as peer-to-peer electronic cash for the world. People like myself, or Jihan Wu, the founder of Bitmain, that people like to demonize as well for the Bitcoin maximalists. He was literally the person that translated the Bitcoin white paper from English into Chinese and spread Bitcoin to China. And then myself, with the help of one of my employees, I did the same thing, translated the Bitcoin white paper into Japanese. And I translated the entire Bitcoin.org website into Japanese and spread that all to Japan as well, and then to the English-speaking world, of course. So myself and Jihan are two of the people that have done some of the most to spread Bitcoin to the world. And we're two of the people that these Bitcoin maximalists that support censorship, they love to attack and hate us and claim that we're attacking Bitcoin. I see it the exact opposite, and Jihan and I have supported free speech the whole way through as well. And same story with Gavin Andresen, the guy that Satoshi Nakamoto literally left the keys to the Bitcoin project with when he disappeared. Gavin got driven away from the project, and they literally revoked his keys from the GitHub repository. And
who's they?
The Blockstream employees, Greg Maxwell, and I think Vladimir Landervan, or whatever difficult, I think, Dutch last name, and Luke Jr. and these sorts of guys. And Gavin Andresen said in a tweet not too long ago, he said that Bitcoin Cash is what he started working on in 2010, both a store of value and a medium of exchange. And today, Bitcoin isn't that, but $50,000 is nice, and the Bitcoin name is nice, but it's not exciting from the standpoint of, let's enable every single human being on the planet to have the ability to transact with every other human being on the planet without needing permission. Because today, for the most part with Bitcoin, you need to use a custodian account to do that. And if you need a custodian, it's not permissionless anymore.